Okay, everyone, so it's 7. I'm gonna give it about another minute or so just to wait to see if anyone else joins. Okay, so today's meeting topic is risk management. So, what is project risk management? Well, when you start the planning process for a project, one of the first things you should think about is what can go wrong. Issues inevitably come up, and you need to come up with a mitigation strategy in place to know how to manage risks on your project. Um, Risk management is not only reactive, it should be part of your planning process to figure out risks that might happen in a project and how to control that risk if it occurs. So here on the in the picture, we can see the steps in risk management, which include coming up with a plan, identifying your risks, and then performing different risk analyses, which is qualitative or quantitative, and then planning your risk response and monitoring and controlling your risks. So starting with planning your risk management, um, it's the first step is to come up with a plan, which includes things like itemizing your risk categories, which can be external risks, internal, technical, or unforeseeable. And in this plan, you should also be determining the timing and procedures for reassessing your risk and defining your risk probability and the impacts of the risks. So when you're identifying your risks in your categories, one way is to brainstorm by thinking of future problems that may arise in the project timeline, but also evaluating your past projects and what their risks were. For example, you could have a company that's known for innovation and is constantly testing new concepts with experiments. And these experiments can often fail, which causes high risk and but can be mitigated by designing experiments that fail quickly and cheaply. So a technique for risk identification is the SWOT analysis, and it's a good technique to assess internal and like external influences on a project, and looking at a project's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Um, and by identifying your potential risks, this creates opportunity to identify like positives that can come out of it. For example, cost savings or schedule savings. So once you have your risks identified, you need to determine how likely each of those risks are to happen. And you can do this through qualitative or quantitative risk analysis. For qualitative, there's two components, which includes probability of occurrence and the impact of the risk. And qualitative risk analysis is very beneficial because it not only reduces uncertainty in a project, but also helps you focus on high priority risks, which you can plan out an appropriate like mitigation response for. And also by contrast, you can do a quantitative risk analysis, which um, looks at the statistical analysis of your identified risks on an overall project. So an example would be this Monte Carlo analysis, which is a bell style curve looking at like overall costs and like scheduling. So we are now at the second to last step, which is like planning your risk response. For each major risk identified, you need to mitigate it by coming up with some preventative or contingency plan. And a mitigation plan is something you should be doing simultaneously with your like normal business practices or like integrated in your daily routine. For example, since we're like currently in a pandemic, at medical offices, they wear masks to prevent additional spread of illness to like doctors and healthy patients. Another plan is a contingency plan, which they are usually not in your like standard modes of practice, but are there to prevent like a disaster, so to say, and can be put in place. So when planning risk response, it's important to also assign the right person each risk, and making sure that every risk, every person is responsible for a certain risk in a project. If you don't give each person like an assigned risk, then you're kind of opening yourself up to more risk by being inefficient. Another way to like manage your risk is by outsourcing work if you don't have enough time to look at them. So the last step is to continuously monitor and control your risks. Whoever is in charge of that risk is responsible for tracking its progress. So you'll need to stay updated, or your team needs to stay updated to have an accurate picture of the project's overall like progress, and continuously look for new risks through like meetings and like collaborating with your members. So it's very important to have good communication within the team and a company and within the company to manage the process and like control any like changes in risks. So it's a continuous cycle that constantly needs to be reviewed. So kind of coming to the end of this, just kind of sum it up, why is risk management important? It's important to have a risk management plan to reduce unexpected events by responding to them quickly and effectively. No one likes to have a surprise within a project, so it's important to have a plan in place to be able to mitigate any of the possible risks that when identified. And by doing this, you can save a lot of time and effort that would have otherwise been put towards coming up with a solution to that risk. So in the end, it improves consistency and efficiency within a team by leading customers satisfied and also giving your company a good reputation. So that's it. Are there any questions? If not, I'm going to give Brad the floor from Stryker. He will talk more about like his experience with project management and what he's learned so far.
Thanks, Julia. I appreciate it. So I am very excited to get to share with you guys some real life experience. I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen, and also make sure I share this correctly because I think I've done this like once or twice. So I might need a quick help to make sure that you guys are seeing what I expect you to see. So are you able to see my full presentation, full screen?
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. Wonderful. And I just want to make sure um, I don't have the chat bar, so I might say if any questions come through, Julia, if you see the chat, feel free to interject
Okay.
and just let me know. I'm very excited. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you guys. Um, my name is Brad Garrett, as Julie mentioned. I work at Stryker. Stryker is a um, medical device company. We're located in Portage, Michigan, on the west side. Um, we have been a public company for a number of years now. We are one of the leading medical device manufacturers in the world. We were just rated as Fortune's #5 best company to work for, which is extremely exciting. I remember when I first started, I think we were around the 20 mark, and we've climbed every year. I think one year we dropped from like 8 to 9, but since then, getting the final ranking of #5 is pretty exciting. We're about a $15 billion company, so we're fairly large. Compared to some other companies, we might be kind of small. Companies like Johnson and Johnson are, absolutely massive. But one thing that separates Stryker is our 40 straight years of sales growth. It's a number that's pretty unheard of. It used to be a saying that we would grow at least 10% every year, which holds quite true. If you follow any other businesses, that's not very likely. So very proud to be working at a company that's over 40,000 global employees, um, almost 9,000 patents in one year alone. It's an amazing company. If you guys have any questions about Stryker, feel free to throw them in the chat, raise your hand, get off mute, yell at me. I'd like this to be as interactive as you guys want to make it. I know sometimes these uh, presentations can get dull, and I'm trying to make that not happen. So the best way I can do it is to be with you guys. So um, to start it off, say go green. I hear a resounding go white echo in the background, or at least I think I
Right.
do. There it
Go
is.
white.
I love it. I love it. I'm a big Michigan State guy. I graduated in December of 2013 from Michigan State with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering. I had a concentration in biomedical engineering, a little bit of a focus in electrical engineering. So I kind of did a lot while I was there. A couple things I was a part of was Audio Enthusiasts and Engineers. It was a great group to get your hands on and kind of get some real life experience. Got to do actually a little bit of project management when I was there without even realizing it. And I was also part of the Spartan Marching Band and Spartan Brass. So anyone that's SMB people on, those are the best times in the world. So still talk about it. Being a December 2013 grad, I got to march in the 150th Rose Bowl parade and attend the Rose Bowl where we beat Stanford. The last play of the game, linebacker jumping over the line to tackle the Stanford's running back. It's still one of the best memories I have. Currently, I reside in Portage, Michigan. Like I said, work at Stryker. I've been there almost 7 years. It'll be 7 years in January, which is scary to think about that I graduated college 7 years ago. So I don't quite have a full head of gray hair, but a little bit on the top. So for those of you that have good hair, take advantage of it now. Grow out the flow while you can, man. You too, women, grow out your hair. Love it, embrace it. Fun things about me. Always got to make this a little personal. And I haven't updated the slides since the last time I gave this presentation. So I recently renovated an RV with my now fiance. I just got engaged on Saturday. So that is now the new best memory of my life, which took over from the Rose Bowl, to be honest. Thanks, Jake, for the claps. I appreciate it, man. It is really exciting. So that is our RV. Her name is Dorothy, after the Wizard of Oz. Because there's no place like home. We're very corny and it's super cute. We did a full reno on the inside, traveled all across Michigan and down the Gatlinburg. She is a Michigan fan, unfortunately, but I love her to death no matter what. So other things, love the outdoors, love camping, love RVing, fishing, hunting, you name it. We recently picked up pickleball, which is a super fun sport. If anyone likes to get outside and do something, pickleball is a sweet thing. Love to cook. It's a big passion of mine. Love to cook all sorts of things. Been big into sous vide in the last year, which is it's a French term for water bath. You submerge meat or veggies or whatever for a long time in a water bath. It's amazing. Big member of my church. I go to Radiant here in Portage, so that's a big part of my life. And I still play some music to this day. I still play guitar. About once or twice a year, I pick up my good old trumpet, and not quite as good as I was in college, but it's so fun to bring it out every once in a while. So where have I been? In Stryker, I interned as a test lab engineer back in 2012. I interned over summer designing a test fixture. Came on in January of 2014 as a quality engineer. So focused a lot on user risk management, actually. So my heavy focus was taking the product we had, using very similar techniques to what Julia just mentioned, both quantitative and qualitative research, to determine how does our product impact the user in positive or negative ways. And I mean, you can use these techniques all over, and it's exciting and scary. But my job was to make sure that our product wasn't going to harm anyway in a way that wasn't acceptable. Similarly to my job now as a project manager is to make sure that my project won't get into a way that makes it uncomfortable for the project or the business or whatever. Also, I just realized, is my Stryker logo backwards? Because that would be so awkward if it was. If it is, I apologize. There's like all these mirrors and things on the screen, so just imagine it's flipped, and you can read it good. Don't judge Stryker based on my probably backwards logo up there. So I worked on 3 different products, main products, while being an advanced quality engineer. Worked on Neptune, which is that product on the left. It's a surgical waste management device. It is in charge of removing surgical waste management in the surgical fields of blood, saline, you name it. You got to get it out of the way so doctors can see. The next product I worked on was Cactus. It's a pharmaceutical drug divergent product. So any leftover drugs that they dump down this and it denatures it. There's a big problem in the medical field right now where people will take drugs out of the trash can and then sell them on the streets or use them or something. It's a very serious problem that we developed a product or bought a product and kind of redeveloped it to mitigate that concern. And the last product I have worked on and continue to be as a project manager is the Flight product line. It's personal protective equipment. So we have a helmet system that you wear, then the whole PPE on top of it. Helmets there to house the PPE and keep the doctors cool during the surgeries. I kind of compare some of the orthopedic surgeries like total knees and total hips to carpentry. So if you've ever been outside chopping wood or drilling holes, and it gets hot, and then you talk about moving around a leg, that stuff makes you sweat. So they got the fan to help keep you cool. And then I hope no one gets queasy. If you do, just mute me for the next 1 minute. But on the flip side, you're protecting the doctor from splatter of blood and bone and marrow and stuff. When think of like drilling, it's a perfect example of drilling in wood. You see the wood chips fly everywhere. It's exactly the same in a surgery, but I replace wood with bone marrow and maybe a little blood. So the face shield's there to protect them from all that splatter that happens. They don't want to be contracting whatever that person has. And vice versa, you're protecting the patient. They have this massive open wound. You don't want your bacteria to flow in and cause infection. That's talk about risk management. An infection in the hospital costs the hospital about $1 million. So for us to have this product, it's an easy sell to look at a hospital and say, do you want to save $1 million a year? Yes, then purchase this. So as a project manager, I've gotten to work on the similar product line. Unfortunately, I can't give any more details unless I got everyone to sign an NDA, but I wish I could because it's very exciting to work in new product development. My favorite place. It's my happy place. I've been in here for a long time and probably will never leave because developing products, being a project manager for new products is just so exciting. So we got a few things in the works now to expand on our current portfolio in the market. So, oh my Lanta, I think that everything just flew through. I apologize. I have a faulty keyboard and sometimes it sticks. And that's what happened. If I was a better risk manager, I would have bought a new keyboard by now. But let me get back to this. There we go. So quick touch on what project management is to give everyone a little bit of an idea. A project, you know what it is, right? Everyone does projects in college. It's like a swear word sometimes, like, oh, team projects. right? You always wonder, like, who are you going to be on a team project? But our job is to identify a project, which for me is usually a product that we're designing. And it's got some end time, right? There's a start time and an end time. Start get kicked off, or in some cases, once you get money from the company, so you have to like pitch your idea out to the company. They say yes, we'll give you some money, which is usually an absurd amount. It's scary, right? They're like, yes, we'll give you $10 million. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't trust myself with $10. I don't even get guacamole at restaurants because it costs extra, and they're like handling me millions of dollars. And then there's the end goal, which is when you launch, right? When you send the product out, that is your scope of the project. So as a project manager, we're here to control time, cost, and scope of the project, apply our knowledge, skills, and tools to meet whatever requirements we set forth in the beginning to make sure that at the end we're coming out successful. So some things that we do in project management, we're here to be visionary leaders. So we're like casting our vision of the project, casting our vision of the business into the project team. We're big problem solvers, which is a huge facet that I'm going to touch on today, which is a lot of risk management, a lot of identifying obstacles in the project and removing them. That's a big thing, right? You can see a problem and you can say, hey, that's a problem, but that gets you nowhere, right? It's the ability to take that problem and take it away and allow your project team to be super successful. That makes a good project manager. And on top of that, we're doing a lot of team development, right? You want your project to be a well-oiled machine, because if two people don't like each other, I mean, everyone sees this on project teams in college, right? You always got that one person that is late or doesn't do anything or isn't putting their stuff in, and you got the other person that's mad at him because he's doing all the work, and then you have this tension, right? And a good project manager can remove that tension, whether it's by addressing conflict, by bringing those two people together, or by assigning different roles to make sure that people are successful. You really want to develop your team so that everyone is collaborating effectively. And to do that, you got to be a great communicator, which is challenging, right? You need to look at people and say, how do you communicate? How can I have compassion for that or empathy for that? Task delegation, once again, you want to find people's strengths, fine tune them, and say, this is how you can be successful for the better part of the project, right? If someone is terrible at designing things, you don't want to say, you're my new designer, right? But on the flip side, if someone is great at executing, you want to give them a bunch of execution tasks to make sure that they're being fulfilled. And the last one, something that Stryker prides itself on, is integrity. That is doing things right? As we talk about risk management, especially, you need to do things right, because if you gloss over things or you say, oh, I'm going to brush this under the rug, it will bite you hard. And in the corporate world, in the real world, getting bit hard is rough, right? So my product line now is about a $300 million product line. So that equates to about $1 million a day in sales, which is a ton of money. So let's say that you skip something early and it causes a recall, right? You say, we're just going to forego this test. We don't need this, right? We want to save $10,000 and not do this test, right? Because it saves us a week. And you launch a product, and that test could have helped you later identify the fault that could happen. You cause a recall, right? And now you're lying down. You can't send out everything else. Every day that goes on is $1 million that you lost to your company. You don't want that on your belt. That's it's not good. So integrity, doing things that are right, sometimes doing more than what you think is right, and going a little overboard is good. You want to make sure that you are really not cutting corners here. So Julia stole my slide. You did great. So I'm not gonna hit on this anymore. But you really nailed it. These are the steps. These are the 5 steps. You want to identify, do some risk analysis, plan risk responses, and monitor and control risks. One thing I'll add into what Julia said is your risk responses are really important, especially with risk contingency dates. So when you're identifying things that could go wrong in a project, you want a date to say, this is the latest that I need to decide, is this a problem, right? And then make sure that you have a contingency around them, and also build them into your project schedule. That's another big one. When you look at how long does something take, and I'll go into some fun examples here in a second, you want to say, well, if this risk happens, it'll add a little bit of time. This risk happens, it adds a little bit of time. So really, I think it will take this long. And then you can start realizing some of those risks. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, they go away, right? You get to that point of that contingency date and say, oh, great, like our delay didn't happen. But then the flip side is the week after that, something pops up that you never never learned about, never knew about, which happens in every project. So that's when you need to monitor those risks and control new ones that come in and fix them as soon as possible so that you're not being hung out to dry. So enough of the small talk. Let's go into some real examples. I found this quote earlier: "Little risk management saves a lot of fan cleaning." So I'll let you guys fill in the gaps on exactly what fan cleaning means, but I'll give you guys a real example of risk management. And this goes back to my freshman year of college. It was my first exam in physics. Our physics back then, our physics was an exam, which is pretty brutal. But I remember I think it was a 10 a.m. class, and I was living in Wilson Hall, and my physics class was in the engineering building, and I woke up at 9:50, and I had a bike, so I was like, "This isn't the worst case scenario. Let's forego breakfast, and we'll go hop on that bike, and we'll be there in 7 minutes. I got 3 minutes to spare. Perfect. I planned this out to a T, right? I went out to my bike, and both my tires were flat. And I was like, oh crap. Well, that 10 minutes is now not, or that 7 minutes is now not 7 minutes. It's 9:53. I have 7 minutes to make it there before my exam starts, first exam I've had. And I got two flat tires. So kind of screwed. I rode two flat tires on a bike to my physics exam as hard as I could. Came in 5 minutes late, sweating. It was disgusting. I was super out of breath. Very embarrassing to come in late to try to find your seat in this lecture hall and then take your exam. So that was super poor risk management, right? We can go back from the start. Even if you said it takes 7 minutes to get to my exam, and I have a bike, and I can do this in 7 minutes, you have to have everything to line up perfect. Now let's take it back and think, all right, what if Brad was a good risk manager at that time? I could have went out the night before and checked my tires, right? And then I would have said, hey, my tires are flat. I can't make it there in 7 minutes. I need to leave by 9:45. I could have said, hey, Brad hates mornings, and it's college, and I've been staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning playing Call of Duty every night. So maybe I cut that out for one night, right? Because I need that sleep. I sleep early. I'll wake up at 8, right? Instead of 9:45. That's good risk management. Or there's a million other scenarios that you start building into that. But at some point, you might run into something you weren't expecting, right? So let's take that same example. I woke up early, woke up at 8. I actually ate breakfast. I got to my bike at 9:40. My tires were filled. Everything was great. I was there to be there at 9:47. I'll get a seat. I'll get my pen sharpened. I brought an extra pen for that risk management because your pen might fail. I brought another pen because 2 pens might fail. I brought 100 pens because who knows, 99 might fail. And then you're riding your bike and you smash into a car. Oh, you can't plan for that. Come on. Like something wild is going to happen all the time. And if I was to mitigate for that, then I would have had to leave 5 days earlier so I can get in and out of the hospital in time to hit my exam. And that starts getting in the realm of non-realistic, that you kind of look at and say, do I really want to plan for this? At some point you say, no, you know what, I'm gonna forego that one. But it's good to think about, right? You always want those things turning to ensure that you're addressing all of those risks that are a possibility, and to understand from that qualitative analysis, right? When Julia brought up that little matrix, that thing is dynamite. We use that all the time. I use that in personal risk. I would share with you my file that has that literally exact same matrix, but it's kind of confidential, so I can't. Sorry, but we use that same thing to say what is the occurrence and what is the harm, right? So let's talk about that car example, right? The harm is huge, right? I could be days late for this exam if I hit a car, but the occurrence is so low that you're like, I'm willing to take that risk. I'm willing to take it. Me sleeping in, right? The harm might be a little less. I'll have 10 minutes less on my exam, but the likelihood's kind of high, knowing that I hate alarms. So to do that, you say, ooh, this one is in the high region. This isn't a high. I need to address this as early as possible. I need to address this way before it comes to fruition. It's a little funny example, but I'll give you a couple of real examples now of things that I've seen in the business. So we talk about attacking risks, right? Or identifying things that could occur. One scenario we had at Stryker was we have some plants down in Mexico, and we have some plants in Germany and all over the world. And we were going to get a product sterilized in Mexico, and the truck, the actual semi, was held at gunpoint by someone at the facility. So our driver got out, and they took the truck and they drove off with a whole truck full of our product. So I mean, millions of dollars of product, right? And when we go back to like Stryker's values, people is number one. So we looked at that and said, we can't put anyone at risk. We are totally stopping this plant. There's a sterilization plant. So we said we can't sterilize there anymore. To qualify a sterilization plant is about $200,000 and 2 to 3 months worth of time. So you look at a business and say, all right, 2 to 3 months, and we lose $1 million a day. So we're going to lose $90 million, and it's going to cost us $250,000. So we're out $9.25 million for this mistake. But the project manager before me thought of a lot of different scenarios that could hurt that sterilizer. What if they're too busy? What if a hurricane hits? Right, that's a real scenario you need to look at. What if the owners just don't want to have it anymore? What if they sell it off to a competitor? He looked at all those different scenarios and said, out of all this, we need to qualify a second sterilizer. Do it at the same time. I will pay $200,000 now to save the chance from losing $9 million later. So this hit us, and it was hard. They were like, we can't go there anymore. And our project manager at the time was like, not today. Like, I got this. Don't you worry. See, we got another one down in Costa Rica that's already up and running. It cost us 20 days rather than 3 months, and we already paid for it. So he mitigated a severe risk that we never knew was going to happen. But by thinking outside of the box and thinking, what could happen, it kind of absorbed that. So it was nice because he had this big delay built in that he could then use for his project. And he spent a little bit of money ahead of time and saved us millions of dollars in the end. So ultimately, it was an amazing choice to make. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want to ask while we're kind of in the middle, getting a little bit more towards the end?
I had a question. So when we're talking about being a visionary leader, you were talking about you have to see what everybody is good at and trying to give them the role that suits them. What
Yeah.
if someone also wants to take a risk and be even though they are good at design, but they also want to get in touch with different aspects of the project. So how do you go about it? And have you also faced a situation like that if you feel you want to take on a new responsibility, but you were not really qualified for it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I'll give two of my thoughts right away. One, when you're thinking about being a visionary leader, you're really there to cast in some vision so that everyone's on the same page, so that everyone has one goal to fight for. So I'll give you a real example. If you guys ever get the chance to read It Starts With Why by Simon Sinek, he talks about this circle, and there's the what, the how, and the why of product design, right? And he talks about Apple's method of designing things. When Apple came out with their iPhone, the what was an iPhone, right? It was something in your pocket that holds music. It's an iPhone. It's got a touch screen, has memory, connects to the internet. Cool. The how was they're going to put a processor in, a camera, put some apps in. It's awesome. Their why is what sold them to the world. Their why is what made it a good product, because their why came from their CEO down. And he said, I want to give everyone the opportunity to have a computer in their pocket to elevate them to the next available opportunity in their life. I don't want anyone to miss out on anything because they don't have access to something right away. That is a why that turned into an iPhone. And you can with anything. You can do the toaster. You say, I want to make a better toaster. And everyone's like, okay, let's try to make a better toaster. If you're like, I want everyone to have the perfect toast no matter what. I don't want a single person to have burnt toast. I don't want a single person to have soggy toast. I want everyone to have toast. And you say things like that, and man, you get a project team that's like, we're here to be creative, to learn how to make the best toast possible. And it sounds silly, but it's real. So when you cast that vision onto a team, and your team is able to grasp onto that, when someone says, "Oh man, I'm not really that good at design," you look at them and say, are you ready to take on this task to get to this goal, right? Because I'll let you take on something you're not comfortable with. I'll be here to challenge you, and that's also a great project manager is challenging people. And if they sit there with that mindset to say, we're here to make the best product in the world, and I might not be strong in design, but I'm willing to fight until I am. You're going to be successful. When you're inspiring people, you're allowing them to create the solution. You're allowing them to create their destiny. And if you throw out a good vision, people are going to be running through walls to get there. And maybe they don't have that experience, and maybe it's their job to go out and get more experience or second degree or whatever that might be to be able to be successful. So it's your job to be encouraging to them to be successful. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
And
you.
what about the part about youth maybe facing a similar situation?
Yeah, I have a great example. We got a lot of systems at Stryker that are challenging. They're hard, cumbersome. It's just part of the corporate world, right? You got a ton of systems in, and we had one that was a little bit challenging to understand the nooks and crannies of, and we needed someone to be an expert in it. And it's not glamorous, right? If you're an engineer, you want to engineer things, you want to design things. So we had to get someone to be really, really good at this system. That was what we needed, was that expertise. And we looked at one person that was a new person at Stryker. She came from a master's program. It was designing pacemakers. And we said, hey, could you do this? Can you take this on? We want you to be an expert in this field. And how we cast vision was, hey, by you doing this, you will save us a ton of time and heartaches and headaches. You will help launch this product alone by being this expertise, which is so true. And she took it to a whole new level that we weren't expecting. She took on this job that was not glamorous, and she made it glamorous for her. She found out her strengths that fit into it, and she saved us in our project months of risks that we weren't ready for, just by becoming an expert in a field that was not glamorous. And she did amazingly. And was tell the truth, right? We didn't butter up anything. We said, we need this to happen, and we think you're a great candidate because you're a great learner. You have skills that fit into here, and we think you'd be awesome at it. So even if you say, I'm not a great designer, if you have someone that's not a great designer, you say, yeah, but you're great at learning, which is awesome. You find their strengths that make them into that role. So it's all about identifying your project team, listening, understanding your project team. You guys can do these now, right? So listen to who you're working with, find out what they're passionate about, and then take advantage of that and say, you love this. Let's latch onto this. So I hope that helped a little bit. I see a big thumbs up, so I'm gonna go ahead and
Yep.
I appreciate it. Any other questions before I go on to this next slide? All right. Another great quote that I came upon: almost everything worthwhile carries with it some sort of risk, and it's everything, right? Not only projects, but life. We all applied just to Michigan State. We all switched to go to college. Those are all worthwhile, and it came some sort of risk. So this real example that I'll give you, for those of you that are aware of some manufacturing things, there's this process called injection molding, and there's a cast they just shoot plastic into, and it creates a mold of something. There's all sorts of things that, if you look around your desk, you'll probably see things that were injection molded, or a lot of plastic is injection molded. So during that process, we have a ton of different tools that are made. You have aluminum because it's cheap, then you go to steel. You get them what's called textured, which is like kind of smooth, roughed out edges, whatever. And we've been burned in the past during our development that once we send it out for texturing, that something happens during that time, and the tool might fail, and it might break. Someone might drop it. It might get a dent, whatever it might be. It causes some issues. So what we did beforehand, because we saw it a lot, was we have testing at the end of our product. So we need to test the product very rigorously to make sure that that we're making a good product, right? You don't want to send anything out that you haven't tested. But we were concerned that when the tools were good, they would then go out to get textured and come back bad. So we ordered 2 times the amount of all the samples we would need, so that we could do our verification build with product that is basically the same, so that we could test it as well as we could in case something went wrong. So once again, spend some money, which is, it's not always bad. It's good to spend a little extra money, and you can justify it, to make sure we had extra parts in house. And what happened was all of the tools except one were fine. They were good. So we took all those parts and just threw them away. Like, yeah, well, it's fine. One tool was broken, and the timeline of a tool was 4 months. So once again, 4 months, $1 million a day. You're talking a huge downplay that a lot of projects don't think about. They just say, "Oh crap, this happened." And one project I saw in the business, they had multiple tool failures, and it delayed their entire project by over a year. And that was a new technology, so that cost a ton of money, to the business. But at this time, we ordered an extra set of all the parts, so we're able to smooth right through. It didn't cause us a single delay. It was beautiful. And the best thing is, it kind of went under the radar. It was almost like unrecognized, because it was so smooth, and we were aware that it could happen and plan for it. So there's some times where you plan for risks and they don't happen, and you say that's fine, right? You showed up to your exam 10 minutes early. That doesn't hurt a single thing, right? It's the harm of you not doing it that gets realized. That is harsh. So your goal as a project manager is truly to go through a project and hope they don't have any hiccups. Hope that you solve all them all. So I'll close this with this last slide. This quote I pulled off online. This is my manager says often. Risks are understood from scars, either from your own experiences or others. Right? That moment that I was late for that physics exam, I was scarred, man. I will never rely on that bicycle to get to my class again. I'd always make sure I was there 5 or 10 minutes early, because it was miserable. Similarly, as you go through projects, a lot of times you get scars from things that you've seen. I was on one project, that waste management device, and one of my own mistakes, it caused us to do a product field action. I witnessed so many complaints going on from this product failing in the field, used in surgeries, that I sat there every day hearing complaints about, because we made a running change that it was something I just missed. And it stinks. It stinks to see that. That's a scar I'll have. I know how to avoid that from now on. No project I'll ever be on will have a similar thing happen. And the biggest benefit of being surrounded by a lot of amazing people is to understand from their scars and scars before them, so that you can try to minimize the amount that you have, so that you can really identify the project risks or identify risks that have occurred, and truly be able to minimize what happens in your project. But unfortunately, learning is tough. Learning is hard, and sometimes learning hurts. But take those opportunities, take those failures, and make sure you think about them often, and understand, how can I learn from this, right? A failure without a lesson is worthless. Failure with a lesson is ultimately worthwhile in the end. So thank you all so much for letting me join. Thanks for inviting me. If you guys ever have any questions, reach out on LinkedIn, add me, write me. I put my email on there. Feel free to email me if you guys ever want to chat more. I'm always available. I always enjoy helping people in college. I mean, I was in your shoes what feels like a year ago, but was a little bit more than that now. But I'm always here to help people, right? If I can help you with one thing, it can help make this world a little bit of a better place. So once again, thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time. I'll open it up for any questions you guys have about whatever you want.
There's a question from Jacob. He's asking, before COVID was relevant, I'm sure a lot of people would have called a pandemic an unrealistic risk that wouldn't have been worth the time and energy to prepare for. Clearly, this wasn't the case. So how do we prepare for things like this that are so unlikely but still possible?
That's a great question. It's a phenomenal question. It's actually something that we've been debating amongst the project engineers at Stryker since March. Some of them you can't plan for. You just have to be ready to have something pop up that's just like I'll take it. Like, good one, Mother Nature, or whatever it is. Like, you got me, right? We've dealt with tornadoes in Mexico that have wiped out an entire building. You're like, like you can't plan for that, and it just stinks. But you can start thinking about things that are repetitive or recurring, or items that you can adapt quickly from. That's another thing, is how do you adapt as quick as possible to things like that do occur. So COVID was a huge hit, right? We were sent home on March 13th. I have been in the office twice in the last 8 months now, and we haven't skipped a beat. And we adapted to that risk. It was a huge undertaking to say you can't be in the office to be hands-on. So we shipped out all of our products to everyone and said, fine, here's your product. We want you guys to have it to all the people on the team. So because that would take away from not being hands-on. And we said, all right, video calls, only video calls. And that takes away from the not being in person. But to prepare for them, man, that's tough. You can start throwing things out and say, oh, there's natural disasters that occur here. We'll be ready for a secondary place and start creating plans in the background, things like that. COVID, looking back at it, we were never set up for a big pandemic. But I think looking forward, we kind of always will be. This is our big scar as a whole company. This is our big scar. Was looking and saying, man, we were not set up. The biggest thing that I would say a lot of companies missed out on was the ability to adapt quickly and then develop products fast. Because COVID hit in March, and by the time May came around, everyone's like, we're desperate for X, Y, and Z, right? Face masks, hand sanitizer, toilet paper, right? Everyone's desperate for all these products. And it takes a long time to get set up. Even the planning period alone is like 2 months. So one big lesson we learned is you got to have things in your back pocket ready, or you need to have a process that expedites things as fast as possible. So we might never use them again, right? That's one thing about risk management, is you might have these things that you never use, but if it's on your mind, it might be ready to be used when it could. It also kind of helps extrapolate things into other scenarios. If you're able to adapt quickly, it might not be COVID that's the next curveball that gets thrown your way, but it might be a broken down car, right, or flat tires on a bike. That you're just prepared a little bit more for, right? You have a second bike, or you have been running for a while, so you can sprint to your physics exam. It just makes you think a little bit more clearly about those scenarios. What else we got? Don't be shy. I know there are a lot of curious people, so. All right, well, 20 seconds of silence is usually a good indicator. If you guys are dwelling on this at all and have any questions that pop up, like I said, add me on LinkedIn. I'd love to help out in any way I can.
Thanks, Brad, for joining us today again. Your presentation was really good, and your experiences were really interesting to hear about.
Thanks, Julia. Appreciate it.